So, on this week's show, as you might have guessed by the title of this week's episode, we're talking about drumming for drinks. So, we had to invite on Jim Kilpatrick, Tyler Fry, and Scott Curry. How are you, lads, as well?
Yeah, we're
Doing
very
well,
good.
Rob.
How are
Thank
you?
you. Well, Rob.
Good, good. Well, I have to say, for those of you who may be watching, if we do ever release the video of this, everyone's wearing Drummer for Drinks branded gear, apart from me. I'm feeling very underdressed here. Yeah. But I have to talk about drumming for drinks first of all. As an idea, I couldn't believe that this was running from 2007. That's a long time. So tell me about the idea of it. How did this all get started?
Scott, would you like me to jump in first?
Why
You
not?
want the truth? Scott and
Yeah.
I were on a flight coming in from Glasgow to America, and I can't remember what we were going over to do. And just a quick, just so everyone knows, we're on the same flight as Colin and Justin, the BBC home makeover team. And I seem to recall him thinking Scott was pretty cool. But long and the short is, so Colin and Justin are not involved in drumming for drinks, luckily. Although we could have used their advice, I'm sure, at Todd's Bar. Where I'm going with this is Scott and I were sitting just after the fifth margarita. We had this idea. All great ideas come after margaritas.
Yep.
And we
On an
decided,
airplane.
We're not on an aeroplane yet. Yeah.
I mean,
You should say inside the aeroplane, by the way, not on the aeroplane.
All right, that's good.
I don't think you can get margaritas on an airplane. But obviously, you can.
not
Back in the day,
anymore,
you could-
Jim.
Oh,
Yeah,
sorry, you were first class.
20, no, we weren't either. 20 years ago, all right. But Scott and I were just chatting away as you do at the pub or whatever, and we just started brainstorming as you do, and decided that we thought this concept of an event with 5 musicians, it just kind of just randomly came to us. 5 musicians with up to 5 minutes on stage with you of any instrumentation whatsoever would be a kind of a cool idea. Scott, you want to jump in and let Rab know where it went from there?
Yeah,
Can you
that was pretty much it. There was a little bit more to it. I mean, we were all, the three of us were all good friends of Bert Bard. Bert used to come round the Shots Band Hall and was a great support of the band and everything that the three of us did and everything the band was doing. And Bert always had an idea in his head about beyond the solos, but with a solo aspect in mind of just seeing what drummers could really do. Not just play a March of Spain really well or a hornpipe and jig really well, what they could actually really do as drummers. And Bert came from a background of playing drum set and being around the scene with guys like Bobby Orr and Alex Duthart, who were big club players back in the day in Lanarkshire and beyond. And it was more than just pipe bands for him. He wanted to see what drummers could really do, because a lot of pipe band drummers back in his day and still to this day don't just play pipe band. They might play drum set, they might play other genres of drumming as well. So Bert really wanted to see what drummers could do when they were given a free rein to do it. So that really was a kind of genesis of what we were thinking about when we started the event.
And I absolutely think you hit the nail on the head there. That this was showing drummers as entertainers, that they were more versatile musicians than just your usual, let's play your MSR, your hornpipe jig, your duck cut, all that, that was like way outside of that realm. And Jim, I think that's something that drumming for drinks has really opened up. It's that drummers can be so versatile and lift a snare drum, obviously, tenor, bass, but also like a djembe, a boron, or all these other different percussion instruments. That's been something drumming for drinks has been kind of known for, hasn't it?
Well, they've had everything. Almost every percussion instrument, I wouldn't say every one, but almost every percussion instrument you can think of that could be played in our kind of situation was on there at one time or another. But the other thing that it opened up was it gave tenor drummers and bass drummers who sometimes might think they're in the limelight or they're in the background, and maybe snare drummers would have more of an opportunity to, I'll say, show off or play towards a musical performance with other guys and girls.
Mm.
So it also opened up the world of tenor drumming and bass drumming to everybody. Who would have thought that we could get 5 or 6 bass drummers in an event and say go on there and entertain us? But they did, and they did it well. and along with the tenor drummers.
And I'm glad you said that, because it really has brought the likes of tenor drumming to the forefront. You know, that being the visual spectacle that it is, you can also entertain an audience with it. And Tyler, I think you've kind of been obviously at the forefront of that. But you know, some of the tenor drumming performances over the years have been outstanding. Yeah.
I was mind blown. Starting in year one in 2007, seeing some of the tenor drumming performances, I just remember thinking to myself, watching these performers on stage, thinking, I wish I'd had this opportunity as a kid. And I know the joke with Jim, you know, that I gauged every BBC camera at the World Championships trying to find the limelight. But the reality is, I would have killed for the opportunity to just have the freedom to do my thing like that. And we barely had solo contests in North America growing up. And I know we have them in Scotland, all over the world now, but this was a different thing. The opportunity to be creative. Like, say, for example, Jim and I have a history of being creative together in workshops, in recitals, or on stage. But this was to have an event devoted to that, I thought was pretty special, where you could do anything you want.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well,
Yeah.
but also the front man, being the front man as a tenor drummer and a bass drummer, not just being part of an ensemble or a group, but actually being there out front and leading the whole performance. It's yeah, I think
Yeah, it's a big deal. Absolutely. For a lot of players, absolutely. Scott, I think I remember when I was chatting to you last year, you were talking about the whole format of Drumming for Drinks and the fact that it was very much like a game show, you know, and that whole game show format really came across throughout the years in Drumming for Drinks. Is that something that you guys really nurtured as part of the event?
I think it's something that we wanted right from the beginning. It had to be different if it was going to be something new, interesting, refreshing that people would, number one, want to play in, but more importantly, that people would want to come and watch and be part of the audience and enjoy the day. And if we didn't have that, the event wouldn't be what it became. It would have flopped in the first year. So that was always something that was in the back of my mind, and it kind of goes back to the early 90s when Jim took the core down to play in the Generation game, Bruce Forsyth's Generation game. And a lot of the kind of concept to the entertainment side of it came from that. It was really putting people out on the spot and saying, look, no rehearsals, just get on there and play. And it can either go grand or it could be a spectacular spectacular mess, but thankfully it never became that. But it was always it didn't matter, even if it was messy, there was no one judging it from that perspective. It wasn't a purist performance, you know, it was purely an entertainment thing. And I kind of equated it to being the best man at a wedding doing their speech. You know, it's like no one wants the best man to fail, everyone's on your side. No matter how nervous you are as a performer, everyone's in that room for you at that point in time. And that's kind of how the event was. I mean, much as every performer had their partisans, if you like, and their maybe bring friends and family along to support them and things like that. At the end of the day, everyone had paid to be part of the audience and everyone was there to be entertained. So no one was going there to watch people have a bad time. People encouraged performers, and that was the really nice thing about it for me.
Yeah, that's it. I think that the audiences at Drumming for Drinks have been something of a highlight for sure. Like, it's been a huge collection of very supportive folk in the piping scene. And yeah, I think that's a testament over the last few years for sure. So can I ask you then about the venue? The Lord Todd's Bar has now become the stuff of legend in the piping scene now. Can you tell us how the event found its home there in the first place? I don't know who wants to take that question. I'll give that to Scott.
I'll take that one, mate. I think at the time it was starting to build up as a venue. Willie McCallum worked in the university, and it was really Willie was the main protagonist behind bringing people there. I think it already was a base, an established base for probably more overseas bands to come and live for the week or two that they were over in Scotland for the Worlds. And it just became a little bit of a hub. And between Willie and George, who ran the bar at the time, they started bringing events to it. So they had like the Masters pipe in there, and then following that, the success of that, they started the Drumming Masters, and Jim would have been involved in that back in the day. And I think there was other events in between that went on there. So prior to Drumming for Drinks, the venue was starting to become a little bit of a hub for pipers and drummers to go and just hang out socially, but also to go there as a venue to take in some nice performances from pipers and drummers at different events.
There you
I
go.
don't
Well,
think,
yeah.
I don't think we found a venue. I think the venue found us.
Yeah. There you
Just-
go.
It was a natural place to do it.
Yeah, that's just a natural home for it, Jim. Yeah. Mhm.
Natural home. And what I loved about it growing up in North America was there's a real beer tent atmosphere at a games or a pipe band competition where the bands march in the beer tent and then all of the crowd, pretty much the entire town, kind of like your gala days in the UK, but just imagine a beer tent of everyone at that gala day in one tiny space. For us, was it the best venue we could have found? Absolutely not. There's way better musical venues per se all around Glasgow, as we proved in our final event last year.
Yeah.
But there was something special about bringing the performers right up close to the crowd, without the gates that you have at a pipe band competition, without the, creating space for the judges, or you get what I'm
Yeah.
saying.
Yeah.
There's an energy level that's created in a beer tent, particularly in North America, at the end of a competition where the bands march in, where the crowd's right up and close, essentially looking up others' kilts, looking up down the drones or up the drone, whatever you want to say.
Yeah.
Something special about that. In Todd's bar, in not knowing how many people were ever going to walk through that door, mind you, we thought could create that atmosphere. Was it acoustically the best? No. Was it the best stage with, was it in terms of airflow? Was it the best? No, there was nothing that made this place a perfect venue to do what we were doing. But strangely it was, because it made it a casual, fun, laid back environment for the competitors and hopefully for the crowd. But none of us planned on it ever getting to the point it did by any means. We just thought we were doing a fun little thing.
Well, that's it. Yeah, that's been some of the chat about the venue over the years at the Lord Todd's, is that it was always packed. People had to stand next to each other like sardines with 2 pints in their hands, but no one complained. They all had the best time, and it's just a testament, I think, to the success of the event. I have to talk about some of the performances over the years, because there have been some really iconic moments. People dressed like bananas comes to mind, and other weird and wacky performances. So I'm going to go around here and see if anyone has any particular highlights. Jim, can I start with yourself then? If you get any particular performance moments from Drumming for Drinks that stand out.
Where do you start?
The good thing about Drumming for Drinks and the people who are actively involved in the competition, I'll call it a competition. It almost was that you couldn't fail. You just couldn't fail. In fact, the more things went wrong with people's performance, the more popular the performance became.
Yeah. Yeah.
Nobody ever knew, was that deliberate or was that rehearsed? Outstanding performances, oh my goodness. They were all they were so different. You put me on the spot there.
That's a difficult question, that one. Yeah.
Yes, Scott and Tyler, they would probably say one of the most iconic ones was Steve Foley, who
oh yeah,
year one,
who won, and I think that almost set the tone for everything else that went behind it. And Steve played the bass drum with not a lot of clothes on, and
eventually the ring came off.
And took it by storm. And so there was some fantastic technical performances. Technically, I would say Stephen Shedden, for me, we all actually discussed this before, and we all agree that Stephen Shedden had 3 outstanding performances.
Yeah.
They won it 3 years ago. Ended up, he didn't. We asked him, we invited him again, and ended up Stephen declined, said, I've had enough. I've done well. I'll leave it this time. Stephen, and then you say that people dressing up as bananas. I remember Mr. Blobby coming on, and
oh yeah, I remember that as well.
Can't even walk.
So, yeah,
I think the most bizarre one would probably have been Neil Bruce getting his head shaved.
Oh wow, yeah, I remember that.
we don't know what it had to do
No,
with
no
anything.
one had a
funny.
clue that was going to happen.
Everything was so unpredictable. I think that was nobody knew what anybody was doing. We didn't know anything about anybody's performance.
That's what I was going to ask. Did you guys get like a heads up of what was going to happen, or were you just blind? You had no idea.
Barely. Yeah, some
Mm.
competitors, because I was in charge of the invites and trying to get an idea of what people were doing
Mm.
based on logistics more than what they were actually doing.
And sometimes we were asked for props.
Ah, see,
Yeah.
yeah. Hmm.
But genuinely, we had no idea what was going to happen in front of us until it happened. I remember people asking about fire in the past, and of course, we have to say no due to health and safety.
Yes.
I can remember all kinds of scenarios. It doesn't mean some of it didn't end up happening, but luckily,
There you
Right?
go.
right? Does that cover us, guys?
I think so. Yeah, yeah, liability insurance and all of that covered you. Yeah, but I have to say that the event itself, like we've been covering it for years from afar, but we managed to attend the last one there at the new venue, and I don't know, the place was packed out, and we were so excited to be there, but so was the crowd. Like everybody we spoke to, even the bagpipers, they seem to be really enjoying the show as well. And I have to come to the conclusion now, I guess. But I'm sure by now everyone has seen the article that was published on pipesdrums.com, where you guys have now made the reluctant decision to pull the plug on Drumming for Drinks. So we will not see the event return. So can I ask then, what was the reasoning behind the decision then to eventually pull the plug on the event?
Number one, all good things do need to come to an end eventually.
Yeah.
Jim, do you want to jump in there? What do you think?
Well, yeah, I mean, and I think every year we would sit down after it and having had a successful day, we would just look at each other and go, how do we beat that?
Yeah,
How
yeah.
do we beat that next year? And the answer is we don't have a clue how we're going to beat it, but beat it we did.
Mm.
And or at least in our minds, it was always a bigger, better event as it got more popular. So
Yeah.
I think it reached a natural conclusion for us that it certainly hadn't run its time. You know, we all agree that there's lots of legs in the event left, and I just think that that's a wise and appropriate time to say, okay, leave them shouting. Better to do that while everybody's had a fantastic day and still enjoying the event. And we didn't really pull the plug on it. We just kind of switched the socket off for a while.
I see. I like that analogy. Yeah, because I did mention this off air, but at the very end of the Pipes Drums article, there was this little glimmer of hope that as one door closes, another one opens. So I don't want to ask you what your plans are, but clearly there must be something in the works for us.
I think without question, if you look at, I've got a list in my notes on my phone that goes, just dinner, recaps. I've got a list like this of really, really great ideas that came from the three of us or from members of the public, etc.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say never, but I know for now, I think all of our businesses have grown, our lives have changed a lot. I think we just need to reconvene and see where the future goes with this. But on the day that, I think Scott said it to me earlier, on the day, the event sort of just ran itself, but it's the amount of time and energy that goes into creating everything for the day. That was the hardest part in terms of the allocation of time on our ends. We barely have enough time as it is right now to, eat, let alone, create an event, but that doesn't mean we're not willing to do it, something in the future. I think we just need to celebrate what's been accomplished, which I do believe genuinely that we've accomplished a lot in terms of showing the possibilities that exist in our game.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
See, when you consider that somebody that's holding a high-profile event with one band or a quartet or a group of 2 or 3 people that does the performance or the show for the whole night, consider that we're bringing in 20 frontline people, and for every one of them, there's 5 accompanying musicians. with all the different instruments, all the different props, all the different needs, all the
Yeah.
different lists. So it just didn't happen itself. Hopefully it came across that way, but Tyler and Scott, particularly these two guys, just were day and night for months before it, organising, inviting, and sorting out. There's probably there's 100 performers on that day. That's a lot of individual people.
Yeah, absolutely. Success like this doesn't happen by accident, and the amount of work that's bound to have went in behind the scenes to make every event possible. I don't. It seems to be.
We have not spoken about
Hmm.
what's coming next. I know you won't believe that, but we haven't.
There we go. So that all of this, I don't know, from the very outset, that idea on the airplane. Do you ever think that this is where you will be now with such a successful event? I don't know. Was that the thought back then, Scott? Do you think?
I don't think, from our perspective as being the organisers, that I could truly answer that question, as to where it started and where it's going in between, and where it was when it ended off. Because I think you're too close to it to make that judgment. And I never thought about this until after we did pull the plug on it, and it was the kind of final send on the email, and then the press release was published and things like that. It wasn't until I was kind of reflecting on it and I was thinking, I wonder what it would actually be like to be someone who was buying their ticket the day the tickets went live, and were looking forward to it and anticipating it coming to Scotland for the first time, getting to the Todd on the day, standing in the queue for an hour, waiting to get in, walking through the door, and the whole thing just being a big surprise. That 3 hours, 4 hours of just pure surprise. And that's something that I think the three of us, albeit there were elements of things that we didn't really know about, and we were seeing them at the same time as everyone else, but the actual experience of the event from start to finish, and leaving and going, wow, that was amazing, or wow, that was okay, whatever the takeaway was from it. It's the one thing I think the three of us would never ever really know. So to gauge what the event was like, and how good or how bad or indifferent it was, I don't think that's something that I could really gauge it. It was always just something I gauged from what other people's feedback was, and we did get a lot of feedback from people, and thankfully over the years, I think I'm quite proud, and the threes can be quite proud in saying that none of it was negative. It was always people who had been looking forward to it, anticipating it, and having such a wonderful time at it, and they wanted to share that with us, and just it was really people that kept us going and keeping the thing moving along, But it was nice to have that appreciation from the performers too, just for them to have had the experience, and some of them being young drummers back in the day, maybe who were playing in grade 3 bands or juvenile bands, just being able to share the same stage with drummers that they idolised. Very few of them would have had that opportunity elsewhere, and for them to walk away from that and then see where they've gone through the years, and see them now becoming the drummers that are idolised by the young kids coming through. I think
that's right.
there's lots of great takeaways, but to actually gauge the success of the event from our perspective, that's a difficult thing for me to put my finger on.
Understand. Yeah, well, I have to say, the outpouring of love, I think that's the way I want to put it, is absolute love for the event. That ever since the announcement came out, everyone was like, "Oh no!" It was like a breakup almost. So many people were so upset. But this said an end of an era, but that little line at the end of the article does give folk that little bit of hope. But guys, whatever you have planned, I can't wait to see what it is, because goodness knows what it is. Yeah. I have to talk.
Yeah.
So I have to ask then, before I let you go, about one of the things that has really made Drumming for Drinks unique was the international element of it. That it wasn't just competitors based in the UK that just happened to be in Scotland that day. Like, you guys really made sure to have a very international field of players. Was that something that was a focus, for bringing in international players, Tyler, do you think?
Without question. I wanted to showcase the best talent. And I know Jim's the same, and I know Scott's the same, that we were seeing on different corners of the world and being able to showcase it on the same stage with the guys and girls that we knew were the top of their game, or at the top of juvenile, or the top of grade 4. It didn't matter. That's what made this event so special, was the fact that you could have someone from juvenile, all genders, every just this big multicultural crowd, not only attending but on stage. Yes, without question, that was the focus of the event. We wanted to showcase all of the world's talent in one place if we could, and it didn't mean professional or grade 1 or the best snare drummer in the world, although we've had it all, I think, over the years. We're just really proud to have an international, multicultural, all gender. I can keep going. We just
all encompassing. I think,
all encompassing event.
Absolutely.
I think the version of that is that the event traveled as well. The event wasn't just stuck in Glasgow. We held the event in different parts of the world. We held it in Canada twice. It's been held in Australia, New Zealand too. Jump in, guys, if I've forgotten anyone or anywhere. And there's also been a lot of interest in taking the event elsewhere, with private, not associations per se, but more kind of private organisations who have spoken to us in the past and quite recently as well about taking the event outside the country again. So, and opening it up to more than just pipe band people too. So there's lots of scope there, and there's definitely a demand for it in different parts of the world, which has been nice to see over the years as well.
Oh, there you go. That's so.
Putting ideas into Rob's head there, Scott.
See, there you go. But no, it's all we can do to turn up on a day of a competition. Never mind running a huge event like this. So, guys, I have to say, full congratulations. That's an awesome legacy, and you should really be rightfully proud for what you've achieved. Seriously. So I'm going to talk on behalf of all of our listeners right now. And the outpouring of emails that we got going, oh, no, what are we going to do on the Wednesday now? Well, I can shamelessly throw it in now that Big Rab Show Live at Piping Live is on the Wednesday now. So if you can come along to that if you want.
We'll be there.
You like the way I've done that?
We'll have time now.
But genuinely, I am going to miss the event myself. It was one of the highlights of the calendar for me. There was Drumming for Drinks, the pre-Worlds concert, and then the World Championships. It was one of those things. But hey, who knows what the future holds? And please keep us posted on anything. All those little teasers. Let us know if you are going to be up to anything. Yeah. So before I do let you all go, I do want to go around the room and just ask for some parting thoughts on your thoughts on Drumming for Drinks and the legacy that you have left. So, Scott, I'm going to start with yourself. Have you any thoughts then on Drumming for Drinks now that it's in the rearview mirror?
That's a tough one. It's kind of on the spot. No, it was an enjoyable experience. It was a privilege to be part of it. I really enjoyed it. It's been fantastic. It's been a lot of hard work over the years as well, and I don't grudge any of that at all. Made a lot of new friends out of it as well, which has been fantastic. And we've had a lot of experiences and been places over and above what we do in pipe bands. That we've done some nice things and been nice places with it, and even been able to give a little back as well. In the early years, we did some teaching. We did a couple of workshops as well in the first couple of years. Talk about a lot of work. That was, if you thought Drumming for Drinks was a lot of work organising a workshop. But that was a lot of fun as well. And to be able to do those events for a weekend on top of running the Drumming for Drinks on the Saturday night, that was pretty special too. And we've made lifetime friends out of that process as well. Here we are, 17 years on, 17 years older, but 17 years wiser and with more friends.
There you go.
It's been lovely. Yeah.
I think from my perspective, proving that you can market pipe band drumming or piping or anything to a much wider audience. That there were people through that crowd that knew nothing about piping and drumming, but that were just there for the experience of seeing what this whole thing was all about. And you could argue the Red Hot Chili Pipers have done the same thing, finding a way to market what we do to people out with what we are, our little bubble, for lack of a better word.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
I'm not being critical of associations at all with this statement. What I'm getting at is that, countries like Canada, Australia, New Zealand, United States, anywhere outside of the UK and potentially Ireland, we need to find new ways of making what we do fun and exciting to the next generation. Going back to the Red Hot Chili Pepper example again, Drumming for Drinks was just an opportunity to show that there's so much more to what this is and could be to appeal to a wider audience. We've got changing migration patterns in Canada, Australia, New Zealand. Again, not a criticism of our migration policy. It's literally just saying we don't have Scottish or Irish or Northern Irish, or we don't have the same patterns of migration coming to our country. So we need to find a way to appeal. So our Highland Games, generally speaking, are in decline in many parts of the former colonies of the UK.
Yeah.
And I think we could learn from that as associations or as private organizations, that we need to look outside of what we've been doing for the greater good of the movement globally. I think you may have your own arguments on your side of the world, but on ours, I know it's definitely, I wouldn't say struggling, but it could be in decline if we're not careful about giving it a wee boost. So I think Drumming proves that you can find ways of marketing what we do to a much wider audience. Jim, do you have anything you'd like to add in terms of the legacy or how,
I think the legacy that I take from it is everybody worked hard to get up there and perform. The players themselves, but the accompanying musicians, and they took it serious. But they didn't take themselves that serious, meaning that they were there to play and enjoy themselves. And if they made a slip up, nobody could fail. As I said earlier, there wasn't, the word fail didn't come into it. So that created a great vibe, a relaxed vibe, a really happy room for everybody, performers in the audience. And also,
it was about entertaining as opposed to perfection.
I'm doing it for the right reasons. The other thing is, where else would you have an event like that where a 10-year-old could play against his potential idol? So we got 10-year-olds playing against professional adults. And the other thing, the last thing is just the bond that we created with everybody. We had like Top Secret Drum Corps come in and played 2 or 3 times. We had the Royal Marines that came in.
Russian theater.
You can't get these guys. You couldn't book these guys if you tried. But these guys were actually coming to us saying, we want to be part of it. And then after all that, we all mixed. So young or old, regardless of what stage of their career they were in, we were all together. We were all just having a good time, chatting away. They got to chat to the guys from the Royal Marines, the guys from Top Secret, and all the other special acts that we had on at the end of it. So it was just a great bond for everybody, regardless of their age and what instrument they played, tenor drum, bass drum, or snare drum.
Yeah, oh, for sure. I couldn't agree more, lads. And it's, as I've said before, it should be something that you should be rightly proud of, for sure. So thank you for chatting with us on the show this week. And whatever your plans are, we will be watching, and we cannot wait for any subsequent announcements, if there will ever be any, who knows. But to Tyler, to Jim, to Scott, thank you guys for chatting with us on the show this week. Really appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you for having us.